You look in the mirror, get your orders, look at the view of the city, meet your best friend, and get everything taken away from you, and no matter what you do, you'll never get it back. The first hour and the entire first act of Cyberpunk 2077 is a great parallel for the media cycle, people's feelings, and the journey that you go on in Night City, giving us this sense of wonder and awe, only to be brought down by corporate greed. You would think that a game set in a dystopian future where corporations control the world would refrain from putting their employees under crunch and not misrepresent the product to investors, and would make sure that the product is ready for launch. Unfortunately, the heads of CD Projekt Red did none of these things, which led to a nearly 80-hour journey that resulted in disappointment. In my personal opinion, I believe that CD Projekt Red dropped the ball in this aspect of the game, with us seeing very interesting character designs like the bouncer at the Marks Club, Hanako, Rogue, and so many others having cyberware integrated into their designs so effortlessly, it would take a moment to notice. Glowing eyes, as shown in the first public gameplay demo, are missing from the full game, and not to mention the lack of hair options for those who didn't want straight hair are severely lacking. The fact that we weren't given the choice to give our characters accentuation pieces like cyberware, or were lacking curlier options for our hair, bothers me to no end, considering that the world we are about to enter into has celebrities talking about who created their new body parts as if they were just clothes. Not to mention the fact that catfish, insect, and dragon people, and so many others exist within the world of Cyberpunk 2077, and we only get to see one of them is a huge gaping hole of missed opportunity for interesting character designs. But in the end, the character creator doesn't even matter because you barely see your character in the game unless you use photo mode, use a mirror, or beat the game and get one of the various ending cutscenes. This is a bit disappointing, seeing as in the gameplay demo there were small cutscenes that were going to be used to transition you into and out of a mission. But I'll give CD Projekt Red some slack here because they may have felt that the cutscenes were taking too long to load and they wanted to keep the game flowing at a decent pace. But the lack of seeing your character in a third-person view made this feature pretty much useless. One of the biggest things that were hyped up in the marketing materials before the game came out is how your choices affected the story, where in reality you don't change much of anything. For example, when it comes to siding with Netwatch or the Voodoo Boys, your choice near the end of the mission doesn't really change much. You can side with the Netwatch agent and he removes the virus that the Voodoo Boys put in you, but he also installs a virus into you that will kill the Voodoo Boys who entered cyberspace with you, which results in you having to fight your way out of the Voodoo Boys hideout. Or you can side with the Voodoo Boys and incapacitate the Netwatch agent, and at that point the virus that the Voodoo Boys implanted in you will try to kill you, but it doesn't. So you still go into cyberspace with the Voodoo Boys, but they survive, and at this point you can just walk away telling them that you want nothing to do with them or kill them all on your own. The only consequence of your actions in this mission is the amount of Voodoo Boys around Pacifica later on in the game. That's it. Neither Netwatch nor the Voodoo Boys come back for revenge at any point within the game, whether that's a main story mission or a side quest. The end result stays completely the same. V and Johnny talk to Alt and plan to get her into Mikoshi so she can separate them. Doesn't really hold up to the promise of
every decision you make will have consequences. Your choices will shape how the world reacts to you and affect your relationships with those around you.
But let's just say I had my expectations too high and we're not going to see the consequences of my actions and choices until the very end of the game. Cyberpunk 2077 has 5 routes that you can take to get to the ending. Among these 5 routes, you only have 3 options available to you. Become an enneagram and live in cyberspace, stay in your body but you'll die within 6 months, or lastly, take your own life. With a genre like Cyberpunk, which at its core questions our relationship with technology and what does it really mean to be alive, with people in this game replacing limbs, organs, or even their entire bodies with fully synthetic materials, and simple AIs is imitating human speech so well, it has people coming to it for advice, we never get an extended stay within cyberspace to make us question the difference between reality and this world made of data. And as a consequence of that, we the player never get the internal debate of being made in the ones and zeros, and if that could ever compare to being flesh and blood. Also, I know what I'm about to say is coming from the perspective of hindsight. All of these endings feel like you're taking different paths just to reach the same conclusion. Why isn't there an ending where V and Johnny find a way to coexist as they have been throughout the game? Or an ending where V and Johnny's minds fuse together, kind of like Makoto and the Puppet Master in Ghost in the Shell, coming to a realization that by becoming one they have everything to gain and nothing to lose, or they'll sit there and debate about how much they'll both lose, like their individuality and how much that personally matters to each of them. Either way, I understand that I sound full of myself trying to improve the story, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that our fate is sealed regardless of how we tackle the ending. And lastly, there are just so many missed opportunities in this game. It's a little bit staggering considering that it was a shock to most people that the main story was going to be only around 20 hours just because of the sheer amount of time people put into The Witcher 3, and considering that this is going to be an RPG, and at least these days RPGs are pretty long affairs. It's pretty rare for us to get a pretty short RPG. So with that being said, things like not getting another Johnny flashback about like him in the war, maybe him leaving the war, him being experimented on, and how it was for him finding that out, which would have been a perfect setup to lead into the conversation that starts Act 3. Like how he said, you're just in the position I was when I first left the war, just sitting in a room looking at a wall. That would have been a perfect transition. Imagine going through the war for like an hour, him enlisting, him fighting, then him being experimented on, finding out why the war was really happening, and ending up in a room similar to the one you're into, and then transitioning to V's position in a very similar situation. I feel like that would have been an amazing moment and made that conversation that you and him have at the beginning of Act 3 so much more worthwhile if that was the case. Last but not least, my last disappointment with the game are the romance and fling options within the game. Just to go quickly over the flings, you really can only mess with a male or female Joy Toy, and that's about it. Plus Meredith Stout, who was the only real fling that you have in the game, aka a one night stand with an actual character, not just like a feature of the game. When I'm talking about Joy Toys for that example, there are no other characters that you meet within the game, at least far as I know, that you can have a fling with. If there are, please correct me on that in the comments, but that is the only one that I found. And moving on to the 4 romance options, I'm pretty sure most people will agree that ranking them in from best to worst is probably Panam definitively, then it's Judy, and then honestly River and Carrie are just fighting it out for 3rd or 4th place in everybody else's opinion. Now I feel like it really sucks for anybody who is a gay man or a straight woman that their romance options are kind of bad in comparison to the other 2 options, which are Judy, who is for lesbians, and then Panam for straight men. And not to mention the fact that Panam is the only character whose side quest storyline really affects your ending and gives you a whole nother option to tackle the ending if you do her quest line. Everybody else's doesn't really do much at all, to be honest, other than like your ending message and the fact that in one ending Judy joins you if you decide to go with the avocados in the ending. But by far she's just definitively the best, and it just feels like that there were plans for Judy, River, and Carrie to have their own versions of the ending, or maybe there was some type of plan for all of them to help you with you romancing one of them and becoming a good friend with the other 3. It could have led to some kind of perfect ending scenario. Not necessarily saying that the ending had to be happy, but an ending where all of these side characters that you've made connections with help you out as you have helped them, with like Carrie doing an impromptu concert either in front of or near Arasaka Tower, which would cause traffic and the streets to be kind of clogged up because it's Carrie and he's a big superstar within the world of Cyberpunk 2077, meaning that Arasaka wouldn't be able to get reinforcements there in a a orderly fashion other than by airship, and considering Mikoshi is at the bottom of the tower, that would take a while. Having River get you into contact with somebody who can maybe make the police look the other way while you're doing what you're doing within Arasaka. Maybe they'll only give you this option if you have like 100k saved up to like pay off a police chief or something, which is very easy to get 100k within the world of Cyberpunk, so it's very feasible to make that an incentive. Have Judy hack into Arasaka from a remote location and wreak havoc upon their systems, while Panam and the Autocados and you simultaneously still drill under Arasaka to get to Mikoshi, which gives everybody who you made a great connection with within the game have a role in you trying to get your body back or trying to save you. And I feel like that would have been a very cool scenario to have. But considering that Panam was the only one that was truly fleshed out, and Judy to an extent was fleshed out and had a really cool last mission with her scuba diving, for the most part we never really get that. So while I don't feel like the Carrie, River, and Judy side quest per se should have affected my ending as much as the Panam one, it does leave kind of a sour taste in my mouth that one character was given all of this development and all of this importance to the story and even one of your endings in comparison to the other three, which in turn then makes them look a little bit lacking just because this one just gives you so much more. So with all of that being said, I just want to say I don't particularly hate this game. I just wanted to talk about my personal disappointments and my issues with some of the marketing that went into this game and how some promises just were not fulfilled to us the players. But I'm going to leave it there. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like on it or dislike it if you do. Turn on notifications. And with all of that being said, there are more videos on this channel like this one if you enjoyed this one, and I will see you all in the next one. It has been Skipx and I am out.